Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to try and show you how I go about creating what in my ears are pretty powerful drum and bass really easily. Now the main thing we're gonna do is we're gonna use the Core 909 standard Ableton stock drum kit, and for the bass I'm gonna use basically an assorted selection of pitched kick drums that I've collected over the years. If this is interesting, I can point you in the right direction of the tutorial I followed myself to create this, or if you want a detailed instruction on how I've set this up, let me know. But I've essentially created a pretty big collection of drum samples. Let's see if I can expand this here a bit. Here we go. No, okay. There we go. So you can see this is production music live kicks. We have Riemann collection, Riemann techno kicks. Basically just a bunch of heavy techno kicks. And I've got them all sorted here in this sampler. And I've assigned an LFO to the sample selector, this playhead here, this jiggling back and forth. In addition to this, I've gone ahead and created and in just a standard drum bus, an instance of roar with some various settings. This is not the main focus of this tutorial. So basically, it's going to give us a ton of random variations for our kicks. Now, you could essentially do something like this just with creating a new MIDI track and adding in a couple of your own select kick drums. But today I'm going to try and focus on how to create, what mixing steps I usually take in order for me to create a really solid foundation of a kick and bass. So anyways, let's just simply, we're going to program in 4 to the floor kick drum pattern for our main kick. Here, and with the Hocket rack, I'm simply going to go in and do something like this. We can even go as simple as this. So now when I hit record, or I mean when I hit play, see, we're all instantly almost getting some really interesting results. Now I can play around with, for example, the LFO rate, or like the sample selector, where this starts off. Sounding pretty cool. Let's just go in and adjust maybe the velocity a bit. Yeah, something like that. So we'll get this going, and now I'm going to create a new audio track. I'm going to call this sub, because that's what we're going to create. And then we're just going to resample. And let's just hit record. I mean, we can't even hear our main kick. Almost. So now while this is playing, it's fun to go around and mess with these parameters. Or if you want to get really crazy, we can even increase this, so we're going to get some weird like polyrhythms. I have a delay in here as well, a reverb. Okay, I think that's enough for now. So we don't need this anymore. We're just going to delete it, and now we have a bunch of kicks. So now what I'll do is just select, let's set the loop bracket for 0, like half a bar. You can also go lower or longer if you like, depending on the kind of style you want to go for. I tend to do like I tend to like a bit longer sub rumbles. Yeah, sounds good to me. So now what we want to do is try and glue all of this together in a nice cohesive way. And then what I've come to find is instead of just thinking that you need to boost everything here, like say you're trying to max out the velocity of your kicks. And I mean, yeah, this kind of works, I guess. But we can do better than this, I'm positive. So what you can do, I have this simple sidechain. You can use something like this. This is just a shaper utility, shaper LFO with the map to the utility. I do often tend to want to EQ away out a bit of the lower or like the higher lows of my kicks, especially when it comes to the 909 kick. You can do that. And we're also gonna chuck an EQ on our lower, on our sub section here. Because you can imagine if we're essentially stacking a bunch of low frequency information here. And if you do that for long enough without really controlling your low end, you're going to be left with a pretty muddy low end, and that's not what we want. We want essentially a pretty try and make this as tight and groovy as possible. So how can we go about this? I mean, if we disable this, you could also technically go in here and just play around with this this warp mode. Beats is my default one. See, this is gonna make it more snappy. Or you could set it to 16th notes. We could also load in a groove. Let's go with MPC, for instance. 16. What I do here is just search for MPC. I see the groove come up, and it's added automatically to my groove pool. Now, and then I can go in on this sub clip, select the groove. Then if we set this to 16ths. Let's just check if we can actually hear a difference here. It's subtle, but I mean, you can play around with these settings. Highly encourage you to experiment. So say I have something that I like. Now what I tend to want to do is remove a big part of the mids, especially up in this higher area for now, and maybe also some of the higher frequency content. And the reason for this is that if I were to develop this groove into a track further down the line, then I would work with filling up this area with synths, percussions, and hi-hats, pads, white noise, you name it. And if we have a ton of, like, this sounds pretty cool in and of itself. I'm not gonna lie, I do like these the results that this technique gives me, but at the same time, I'm not making that kind of track for this tutorial. So let's even try and tune the kick a bit. So we got our bases. Now what I often do is group these together, and believe it or not, I use the drum bus. This little device is pretty amazing in my mind. And my settings here, it varies from track to track, but just it does accentuate the kick, like this high-end frequency here. It's like this mid. These sounds I'm not necessarily a huge fan of, but they are important in order for us to make the kick punch through in the final mix. So let's just play around with these settings and see what we can come up with. And I mean, just going like this is instantly. It's not necessarily better, but what you do notice is that it gets super loud, super quick. So we see that it's right now it's hitting at minus 7.3 decibels. And what I want to do when I enable my drum bus is then pull this down negative 7. That way we're getting the oomph, the glue, so to speak, without excessive volume, which can be at this stage you do not necessarily want to try and max out the volume of your kick and bass group. That's you're gonna add several other elements down the line, which also needs to be heard. And if we're maxing out our headroom at this point in the final mix, you're gonna have a really hard time balancing out everything. So I highly recommend to just try and keep your levels low. You can always go to the master channel towards the end of the mixing process and use a limiter or compression to increase the volume at a later point. So yeah, let's keep this at minus 7. And now here at this point, it's also just a matter of like balancing out these two elements. So let's see. Oh. Okay, let's just do a. Then what's really nice is we can always also explore this audio here and see if we can find any other section that also sounds equally as good, if not even better. And this is pretty cool. And if you want, you can also chuck a drum bus on this sub channel. And mainly we can use this boom knob to basically, it's gonna give us a resonant tone at whatever frequency we set it to. So you can also, let's actually do that. Spectrum, and we can kind of see that we're hitting at G sharp. And then it would make sense to hit at 49 hertz, yeah. Around this, like you can play around. Sometimes it can be really rewarding and cool to have a bass note that's hitting a bit below or a bit above the fundamental tone of your kick. This is again, quickly, this is getting excessively loud. So this is the basis of it. This is a really easy technique and really easy, simple, small mixing steps you can take to get a really powerful low end. So if this was of any help, let me know. If you have any more questions, hit me up and I'll try and answer them as best as I can. Oh, and a final note here is that I forgot to mention that usually with the drum bus for the drums, or like the low sub kick and bass channel, usually what I do for the subgroup, not only do I use the drum bus in itself, but I'm finding myself just adding in a bit of this boom frequency, because it really, in my ears, it really glues everything together and just like smears the low end around in the kind of frequency that you want. Now if I increase it, ooh yeah. And I also realized that I feel like this sidechain here technique, just actually disregard that. What I do recommend is placing a compressor at the end of your subchain. And then you could potentially chuck on a glue compressor on top of this. Just for it, so let's increase the attack a bit. So we're gonna try and get more of the click. We still want the punchiness, and we can reduce the release. And now for gaining this, let's see, it was at -6 decibels. What I would normally do is I'll sit and listen, or I'll watch the meters. Now it's hitting at around, like the peak is at around -12, and we kind of want to decrease this range here a bit. We want the bass to be more of a sausage kind of. So now I engage the compressor. Now you can see that the highest point that this is hitting on is not necessarily as high as it were. Had it been original, we need to go up to -12 decibels. So this -12, it's giving us up to 5 decibels of gain reduction, which means we can easily add in 3 to 4, maybe even 5 decibels of makeup gain. Do this, let's try that. And now just for demonstration, we could add in, like, have any pre-made loops here. See, this is only like for inspiration, but you can start building your inspiration here. We can add in a core line of 9 again. Add in just a closed hat on the offbeat. And then what we can do, like, go to track options and delay these a bit. -1, +1. It's easy to get carried away with this. See? And there you have it. This is how I usually, if I want to start with kick and bass and rumble and stuff, this is usually how I do it. So again, I hope this was useful, and if you have any more questions, or if there's anything else you feel like I've missed, please don't hesitate to let me know in the comments, and I'll reply as soon as possible. All right, thanks for tuning in. Catch you later.